If you've ever wondered what an Irishman thinks is really special about Ireland, you'll want to stick around for today's podcast and my chat with author Jack Kavanagh. Thanks so much for joining me again on the Traveling in Ireland podcast. I'm digging back into the archives today to bring you a terrific episode that you may not have heard yet. I hope you enjoy it. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Jack Kavanagh is the author of Always Ireland, an insider's tour of the Emerald Isle. So Jack, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you for having me.
So you grew up in a really beautiful part of Ireland, and then your profession kind of took you away. And I'm sure that's given you a really interesting perspective on your home country. So considering this question as both an Irishman and an expat, what do you think it is that draws people to Ireland?
Well, first of all, you're right. I did grow up in a very special part of Ireland, which is County Wicklow, which is often referred to as the Garden of Ireland. It's up there with Kerry and Galway, Connemara, all the beauty spots in Ireland. So to go from there to London, to Tokyo, to Philadelphia, to Washington, D.C., which are all beautiful cities and all that, but it was a big change, big not so much a culture shock, but just very interesting to be amongst different people, different cultures, and to see Ireland from abroad and see it the way it's seen abroad. I always say that it's having the insight of the outsider, which is very helpful. The longer you've been away, the easier it is to see the appeal of Ireland, which is your question, the special appeal of Ireland. And I've thought about this, and there's to me, the book is aimed at mainly American audiences. And for Americans, I think there's three great appeals to Ireland for Americans. There's the language, there's the roads, and there's the people. Mm-hmm. So we speak English, obviously, of a sort, So the fact that it's an English-speaking country makes travel very easy for visiting Americans. As you'll know, of course, there's many varieties of English spoken in Ireland, and I go into that in the book a little bit as to why we speak so strangely, so weirdly, so interestingly, I think anyway, from the outside. But we basically speak English through Gaelic, through Irish. In other words, our forefathers and our ancestors spoke a different language completely. So we've had to learn this new language and kind of colonize it ourselves. James Joyce said that the great revenge of the Irish was to colonize the English language. And I think there's something in that. But what we do, of course, is we think in Gaelic and then we speak in Ireland, in English, rather. So the rhythms of speech are very different in Ireland. And I'll give you an example that I saw recently in the film The Banshees of Inisherin. One of the main characters, who's a musician, is telling the other character about how he used his time this morning. And he wrote a tune, basically. But he doesn't say, I made this tune or I composed this tune. He says, this I made. In other words, it's the other way around. You get all these kind of different ways of speaking in Ireland. And then there's, of course, the accents. The Cork accent I go into a little bit in the book because it's such fun. And just their way of speaking, that they use different terminology even there. So, for example, doing pana or walking in Cork City, they call it doing pana. And I go into a bit, about the characters you'll meet and the kind of things they'll say to you, and how you almost have to have an interpreter with you for this variety of accents. As you know, there's 32 different accents in Ireland, which is a hell of a lot for a small little country. And you'll get to know most of them if you hang around long enough. If you're in Kerry, you might need a translator, but they will make themselves understood. And so English, the fact we're English speaking is a great appeal, makes it very easy to get around with road signs and that. the roads themselves are the second great appeal, I think. Since I've been back, since we joined the EU in the 1970s, the roads have got better and better and better. And the lovely thing about it is it used to take you about 6 hours to get from one side of the country to the other, from Galway to Dublin to Galway. Now it takes about 2.5 because there's highways, of course, and they're very well kept highways. We do drive on the left, which is a challenge for Americans, but everywhere is within a day's drive now because the roads are so good, and the highways and the byways. So in that sense, it's one of the easiest places in the world to see. If you've got a week or 6 days or even 10 days, you'll see it all. You can go anywhere in a day, basically.
Not that you
Um,
would want to, because, let's be clear, even though you can get from Dingle to the Giant's Causeway in a day,
mm,
it's still a long drive, and if you're just zipping through, you're going to miss a
exactly, it
lot,
makes it.
but you
Yeah,
could.
yeah, yeah. Well, I always say like the highways and byways of Ireland are great. So you take the highways to get there to your
Hmm.
destination, to Dingle or go Connemara or whatever, and but then you take the byways to explore. And the byways are great because you go from these 4-lane highways right to little hedgerows, filled
Hmm.
with wildlife and all kinds of interesting things to explore and to look at. And the scenery, of course, is
Yes.
beautiful. And then what you meet on the byways also is very interesting people just out walking or, just doing whatever they do. In the summer, of course, you'll meet fabulous people. I was putting up a story on Instagram recently. If you want to check it out, it's at JK Global Text, and it's about a woman that we met on the byways a few years ago. Myself and the photographer Jeff Maritzen were in Ireland, and we were going from, I think, Dublin to Waterford, Tipperary to Waterford, maybe. We met this woman called Helen Riley, and Helen Riley is a traveller woman.
Hmm.
So we stopped, and she was feeding her horse by the side of the road. The horse was drawing the caravan, a very old school caravan, wooden caravan. She told us her story. She told us the story of the traveling people. So that's one of the stories in the book. But that brings us on to the third great thing about Ireland, I think, which is the people.
Yes.
And people in Ireland, you really should treasure that as a resource. That should be your destination going to Ireland, is the people,
Hmm.
as much as the beautiful scenery and the Cliffs of Moher and all that. Because Irish people, as you know well, Jody, love to talk.
Yes.
They really do. They'll enjoy a chat with anyone. So in the book, we go into some of the best places to meet Irish people. You don't have to go too far ever to hear an Irish person talk, but pubs are probably the best place to go. Irish people are very welcoming. They're very friendly, and at this point, having lived abroad, I can say that they're among the most welcoming to their own country of any people. And they also have time to meet other people, to talk to
Hmm.
people, which is nice. The fast pace of life, modern life, it's there, of course, in big cities and all that. But, if you're, as I say, if you're on the byways in Ireland, particularly in summer, it's a good thing to get lost. Having GPS is a bad thing in Ireland because getting lost gives you a chance to stop, talk to somebody, and you'll have a great conversation if you want to for the next half hour because they're only too willing to talk. The other great place, actually, speaking of the people, is a GAA game. Have you been to a GAA game, Jody? No,
I've not been to an official GAA game.
right?
When you're driving and you maybe see the teams, like the younger teams out,
Yeah, yeah,
stopping at one of
yeah,
those, but to go to one of the big matches, we haven't. That just hasn't matched up with our travels.
yeah. No,
But
it's great.
it's always fun to stop at the smaller ones where it's
Yeah,
it's families and just people kind of
yeah,
enjoying the afternoon and watching the kids play.
exactly. But if you never get a chance, do go to Croke Park, for a big game, because part of the fun is actually getting there and leaving there because just the sheer banter and the fun is great. And of course, it's all amateur, so you could be in Croke Park with 80,000 people, but the people beside you will know the guy who's playing in goal for Offaly or Tipperary or someone because they work with them, or
Hmm.
because they have some family connection or whatever. So it's very warm and very affable, and the what we call the slagging is great. The slagging being this kind of gentle teasing that we
Mm-hmm.
go on with in Ireland, you know. We we never like to see people get too high, you know, too full of themselves in Ireland. So they're always kind of gently taken down with a little bit of slagging, a bit of teasing, you know, joshing, I suppose you'd call it. I don't know if it translates, but it's all good humor
All
and
good
good
fun.
nature. Yeah.
So part of your resume includes leading National Geographic expedition tours of Ireland. So thinking about this question kind of as a guide and an explorer in your own country, what is the best advice you would offer to people who are considering a trip to Ireland?
Well, I've loads of advice, obviously, because I've done it so many times, and because I take groups around with National Geographic expeditions. So there's all the practical advice is in
Mm-hmm.
the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I suppose the best advice in terms of how to enjoy yourselves or how to get the most out of it is, I'd say, go with an open mind, you know, and be prepared to go with the flow. Ireland's a very spontaneous country, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Be prepared to talk to people and to listen to people, and be prepared to be amazed by what people tell you. Like I spent half my life in Ireland and half my life abroad, but I'm still amazed and shocked sometimes by the great stories that Irish people tell me. And it's not so much the stories, it's the way they tell them. You know, the Irish people have a very nice way of delivering a story and kind of building it up. And of course, this goes back to, you know, centuries of practice with Shanna Keys, which is the Irish word for storytellers. Storytelling is really, really revered in Ireland. You know, if you can't tell a good story,
You better keep your mouth shut.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's you know that's part of the reason why we like pubs so much, because you've got an audience there and you've got, you know, you can deliver you can deliver it over and they've got time to listen to you. But you know, in all seriousness, it was this knack of storytelling, built up over centuries of, you know, sitting around the fire when there was no TV or internet, of course, and it was a way of entertaining yourself over the long winter nights. So a good story would always be added to and told in different ways and redelivered and, you know, slightly tweaked here and there. So, you know, always being prepared to listen to people's stories and be open minded.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I was in Kerry last year, and I was in Valentia Island, which is one of the most spectacular islands in Ireland. Absolutely beautiful place. And I was in a little cottage there, writing the book for a week. And I invited a friend up who he was actually a friend of a friend, a kind of an acquaintance from my hometown. I knew he had a place in Valencia, so I got his number and I said, you know, I'm around, come up, watch the match or whatever. And he was a retired school teacher, a very kind of quiet spoken man, lovely man, Kieran. And he told me a lot about, you know, spending time in Kerry, gave me a lot of good stories in Kerry. And he proceeded to tell me this incredible story, which shocked everyone in the room, about his daughter, who was on her third heart. Believe it or not, she had two heart transplants. Now, I didn't even know that was possible. I'd never heard of such a thing, you know. But it was the way he told it was so incredible. He kind of told it at halftime during the match we were watching, and as soon as the
By the
match
way,
he said, "Oh, okay, sorry, I won't bore you last now. And we'll get back to the match." And we, oh, tell us the end. Is she okay? What happened,
oh
you
my
know?
goodness.
And he kind of left us hanging then, of course, till the end of the match. And he told us the rest. But it's you know, it's typical of Irish people. They really can tell a good story. So you know, that's the other thing. They tell a good story, but they're good listeners as well, Irish people, because they're very interested in other people. I find, in a way that you don't get in you know, more built up places around the world where people just don't have time, I suppose. But Irish people will always be very interested in outsiders, because we're an island race, but we're not insular in
Mm-hmm.
our thinking, you know. So the other part of the equation is that there's uh, 20 million Irish people abroad. So you'll usually find, you know, if you tell them where you're from, they'll usually find a connection. You know, oh yeah, I have a cousin there, or down the road, or in the same state, or whatever. You know, they're very kind of open to where you're from and what
Yes.
your experience is, you know.
Yes. Very much
Uh,
so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I tell the story in the book that the general historic story, at least my take on it, you know, um, is that, you know, as an Irish, as an island people, the Irish have been conquered repeatedly, but we believe in kind of reconquering the conquerors with a bit of charm and a bit of
Hmm.
persuasion of storytelling. So, for example, the Normans came to Ireland, they colonized the land, and they were forbidden to fraternize with the Irish or to speak Irish. You know, it was the same idea of you know, getting rid of the Irish culture and making everyone Norman or English. So Irish was forbidden to be spoken, or Irish music was forbidden. But of course, it didn't work, and the reason it didn't work was because the Irish have all the best parties. So of course they're going to fraternize with them. So the famous saying is that, you know, the Normans became more Irish than the Irish themselves, and I think that's what happens when you talk too long to an Irish person.
They draw you in, and
So,
that is
yeah,
so true.
with their stories, you know. Yeah.
So true. Oh my goodness. So I did actually receive a preview copy of your book. And the first thing I thought about it when, well, I got the box and I was like, that's a huge box. And then secondly, I pulled it out and it's this massive hardcover book and it's what, a good inch thick. And I was
Stopper,
like,
yeah,
that is so much more than a guidebook.
yeah, yeah.
And so going through it, I mean, and I read it. Okay, I didn't like read it, but I'm a fast reader. Um, but I went through every page, skimmed it heavily. I'll say that. Um, and I think the thing that I loved the most about this book is that every county has its time to shine. So places like Tyrone and the Sparran Mountains and
Mhm,
Wexford and Sligo, you
mhm,
know, places that I absolutely love that most people have never heard of when, and they don't see when they're trying to figure out their Ireland vacation. All of those places were were in this book and highlighted and, you know, talked about as equals with the places
yeah,
that everybody knows, County Kerry and the Cliffs of
yeah,
Moher, you know, Wicklow and Glendalough. Everything is in there. And then you added culture and driving tours and advice and everything like that. So it obviously was a lot of research. How long did you spend working on this book?
Well, I suppose like the the, the
Other
straight
than a
answer,
lifetime, right?
is 2 years, but the proper answer is, you know, decades. But no, I do go back a lot. Like obviously, I still have family in Dublin, and I go back, you know, at least once twice a year, whenever I can. So I was ready to write it, if you like, but it took about 2 years with COVID and that, because it was going to interrupt it with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I say somewhere in the book that, you know, COVID was a very un-Irish thing. It was like the idea of masking a smile, or just the idea of social distancing in Ireland was completely alien to us. It was kind of what, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
we can't go to somebody's house and you know, have a cup of tea or
Two
a drink.
kilometers, that's it.
Yeah, it was very difficult, you know. But no, it was great. Like, to answer your question, it was it's more of a it's less of a travel guide, because I think travel guides are migrating online now. You can get everything you need
Hmm.
online in terms of information, travel information, accommodation, etc. So this was more of a, I suppose, what you call an aspirational travel book. Um, I like to think of it as a dreamer's guide to Ireland. You know, I introduce a character in the book who is deceased now, unfortunately, but he was like a kind of mentor to me when I started out in journalism. His name was Con Houlihan in the press, and Con was a great sports writer who, his credo, if you like, was daydreaming is good for you. You know, which
Excellent.
I always thought that was good. Like, we should all have the time to daydream. You know, we should all have the time to think what we want in life
Hmm.
before we
Hmm.
actually go out chasing it. You know. So this is a way of kind of daydreaming about Ireland, this book, because it was written with the idea that, yeah, it's good to know where you're going and what you're doing and where we recommend to eat, and that's in it. But a lot of it is, what do you like about Ireland? What appeals to you about Ireland? Something you can dip into like prior to going. If you buy the book now and you're going to go in 6 months' time or a year's time, you'll be your appetite will be whetted in ways. If you're into history, if you're into culture or food or whatever, trips to take. You mentioned the Sparran Mountains, which I'm delighted somebody actually read that chapter
Love
because
those.
but it's great. I'm really happy to hear you say that because hopefully more people will go to these places.
Yes.
But that's what the book is about. It's about just kind of dipping into ideas about Ireland and characters about Ireland and culture and what people are doing now, not just historic and all the things you'd expect and all the tourist things, but try to introduce you to interesting people and there's a lot of culture in it as well because, as we said, half the appeal to me of Ireland is its people. I also put in a section about the Irish abroad in the various places, like the Irish in Britain, what they're doing, what they've done historically, the Irish in America, of course, the Irish in New York, Africa, Australia, etc. Because that's a big part of the Irish story that kind of gets overlooked. The 20 million people who are abroad and what they've done and what they've brought back.
You also included the islands of Ireland, which I thought was a really nice addition because other than the Aran Islands, a lot of people don't
know them.
Yeah. So,
No,
seeing Jersey in there and obviously you mentioned Valencia, and Spike Island, which is getting more notoriety now, but seeing more of that, I really like that it gives people a whole picture as opposed to the small tourism brochure picture.
Exactly.
And it also reminds people that even though Ireland has this amazing history and amazing culture, and that I guess it's that that thought of wanting to visit. I hear this a lot, the real Ireland. And when people say that to me, I have to ask them, what do you mean by that? And usually it's kind of a television quiet man version of Ireland. And while I love that romantic version of Ireland, and you can definitely find it, I love the fact that Ireland so easily melds together the current and it's a very very technologically advanced country. It's not, you're not traveling back in time. There's internet and phones and, like you said, great highways between places, but then you can get off of those areas and kind of feel like this is what it used to be like. And I love that that it so easily blends in Ireland. It's not a stark contrast of here and now, and then over there is the other, that everything kind of fits.
Well, that's a very good point you make, Jody. Ireland is the past and the present because it's always evolving. It's a very vibrant country, which makes it good to visit. But it has the past, it has the present, it also has the future. And I think the key to all this is the storytelling. And I'll give you an example. You were talking about the islands, which are really a fascinating part if you have time to go out. They do take a bit of effort to get to, obviously. But, if you go to the Skelligs in County Kerry, you're visiting a 6th century monastery where, monks were living on for centuries in the dark ages of Europe. But you're also visiting the last
Jedi.
The Jedi story as well, and that whole industry just gravitated there for a few months and found it absolutely amazing. So there's a whole industry now about that they have their own Star Wars festival there every May 4th because May the 4th
be with you. Yes.
So Ireland adapts very easily. It's a very adaptive culture because it as I say, it's not insular. It absorbs other culture and it goes with the flow and all that. And it is a very easy place to visit because there's fun things going on like that, and if you're not just into history, if you're into yeah, I don't know if you're into rock and roll, it's a fantastic place. Like I love music, I love rock music, and there's always incredible bands to go for me to go and see in Dublin when I'm there. Then I'll go down to Dingle and I'll be sitting and listening to traditional music, which is fantastic. It's a great place. For all those reasons, there's a bit of everything.
There truly is. I know when I'm working with people to help them with their itinerary, one thing I always ask is, what are you interested in and
Yeah.
what do you like to do? Because if you like kayaking or you like
Mm.
surfing or you like knitting or music, I mean, you can find something
Exactly. Yeah.
literally for everyone there, and just bring a little bit of Irish flavor into what you already enjoy. So,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And as I said again, it's the people that make it great and make it very welcoming and whatever you're into. If you're a surfer, you'll have a very Irish experience surfing in Donegal or whatever, because the Irish people will be different. Because when you're done surfing for the day, you go and you have a pint in a fantastic pub where everyone is expected to get up and give a song. There's a place called the Scene Pub in Donegal, if you've ever been.
mhm.
And this kind of thing is going on. It's just a brilliant place to be in terms of fun and that. Irish people are good fun to be with. I was on a cruise to Cuba, uh, and on the first, it was a kind of press thing, a travel press thing. And the first night, a cartoonist from Toronto, who's become a lifelong friend ever since. He's a great guy, Gary. He came up to me and said, "Oh, you're the Irish guy, yeah?" And I said, "Yeah, nice to meet you, Jack Kavanagh." And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to hang around with you if you don't mind, because the Irish always know where the good parties are." And that's the thing. But I think Irish people are, they're good at kind of blending in and that. I'll tell you another story. I was at a bus stop in DC when I worked down there about 10 years ago. And this guy saw me reading a book. It was a Comto Bean book, I think. And he was kind of, I could feel him over my shoulder. So I said hello. And he said, "What are you reading there?" And we got into this conversation about Ireland and all that. And he started kind of pounding me with questions about Ireland. And he said, "So how many people are in Ireland?" And I said, "It's 4.5 million at the last count." And he said, "What?" And I kind of thought, where's he coming from? And he said, "Geez, for 4.5 million people, you make a hell of a racket."
It's excellent.
He means culturally, obviously,
Hmm.
but I think, it's great for the food and the scenery and all that. But I think the people is what really make it great, And he's right; it does punch above its weight
Hmm.
culturally, in terms of literature, songs, music, all that, So it's all in the book.
Yes, and so good. So, Jack, as we're wrapping up our time, I always end my interviews with a question, and I'm going to apologize because it's a difficult question, and because I'm actually not limiting you to your area. So, what are three things that you think people should not miss in Ireland when they visit?
That's
I know
that's
it's hard. Usually, I let people, if I'm talking to somebody, say in Wicklow, I say, what shouldn't they miss in Wicklow? But
right, right.
you wrote a book about the whole country, so you're kind of
Yeah,
stuck.
so I'm on the spot here. Fair enough, fair enough. Well, usually, like I'd say, if I'm going back to Ireland, which I am soon, there's three places I always try to get to, you know, Dublin, Galway, Kerry, because they're just fantastic and great fun, and they're right to be up there as the big destinations. So I'll try and give three other things that you mightn't have heard of or whatever. And so the first one in maybe we'll take Dublin, Kilkenny, and Donegal as being three great places to visit if you really want to see something different. In Dublin, of course, like most people head for the Book of Kells. It's the big attraction. We're probably the only country in the world where the main attraction is a book, uh, which says it all about Ireland, really. But Trinity Library, rather, where it's shown, is currently being renovated, so it might be a bit tricky to get there. So I'll give you an alternative place, which most people don't see, and it's to go and see some dead bodies. Which it's bog bodies. Now you might have heard about the bog bodies, but to give them to give it its proper name. It's the Kingship and Sacrifice exhibition at the National Museum of Irish Archaeology, and of course these are the bog bodies that date from the Bronze Age. They're corpses that have been preserved for centuries in the bog. And I should say that, like, Dubliners like myself, I consider myself a Dublin, even though I'm Wicklow. I lived in Dublin for a few years, but we have a very dark sense of humor. Like, we've got a wicked dark sense of humor. We like black humor. And my favorite story to come out of Dublin is James Joyce's The Dead, like most people, you know. So I get this kind of perverse kick that when National Geographic expeditions tours, our guests land, we get them on a hotel, and we introduce ourselves, and then the very first thing we show them are dead people. You know? It's like, here's some dead bodies, like, from, you know, a few thousand years ago, but they are fascinating. They're really, really worth going to see. You know, they're like leather skinned, and it's just like looking back in time. It's
so fascinating.
It's like cheating time. You know, it's like, well, these people were Bronze Age people, and we don't know how they died, of course, but we suspect that they might have been sacrificed. You know. And there was a good piece in the New York Times, if your listeners have a subscription, a couple of weeks ago about these. But I always try and read a few poems on the tours as well. And one of the a couple of the poems I read are Seamus Heaney's works on the bog body. So look them up, and it'll give you a sense of what you'll see in when you get to the museum. And then after that, in Dublin, I'd say about a quarter of a mile away, head down for Sweeney's Pharmacy. Now, Sweeney's is actually it's a pharmacy, but it's a Joycean museum at this point. It was a pharmacy that was mentioned in Ulysses. Leopold Bloom pops in for a bar of soap for his wife, a bar of lemon soap that he has to buy for his wife. So it became, a scene on the Joycean tours, and they've turned it into a little museum now. And there's a man called PJ Murphy, who is a scholar and a fine singer, and he gives us a song or two from Joyce times. And we're actually going to have the launch of Always Ireland is going to be in Sweeney's in early April, and after that, if we'll probably head across to Kennedy's pub across the way for a pint. So that's a nice little thing to do on your first day in Dublin. Three little things: the bog bodies, Sweeney's for a Joyce recital and a song, and then over for a pint in Kennedy's pub would be my my recommendation for Dublin. And then my second place would be Kilkenny.
Love Kilkenny.
Absolutely fabulous place. You've got it's a medieval town. It's got this history of witchcraft, which is kind of fascinating. You know, there's been a lot of witches in Kilkenny down the years, and on the other side of it, there's a lot of churches. And one of them, St. Mary's, is now a medieval museum, of course, one of the best in the world. And so take the medieval mile walking tour, and you'll get the whole sweep of it. And then the other great thing is in Kilkenny, part of that tour would be St. Canice's Cathedral, which is up on the hill. It's got fabulous stained glass windows, well worth seeing, which were devastated by our friend Oliver Cromwell when he invaded, but you get the full story there. Right beside it is a round tower, which you can climb up. It's one of the only two, I think, round towers that you can actually climb. Well worth the view. But the best thing probably about Kilkenny is the nightlife. It's just got it's such a great place to be. It's such fun, you know. You can get out and see the medieval cellars where in Coulter's Inn, where the witches hung out, and have a pint there. You can go to Tynan's Bridge House Bar, is another great pub that we like to go to. Myself and Rory O'Shaughnessy, who leads our tours, went in there last year, and I'll never forget. It was just after COVID, and it was packed to the rafters, and everyone in there was singing along to the house band and the singer, who was singing an old Lonnie Donegan tune. I just remember being kind of blasted with this wave of happiness, and I turned to Rory. I said, God, this must be one of the happiest rooms in the world now at this stage. It was just fantastic. It was, and that's every Saturday night in Kilkenny. It's a marvelous place. The other lovely place to visit in Kilkenny is the Hole in the Wall pub. Do you know that, Jody?
Hole in the Wall, yes.
Yeah, it's great. It's like a little place
I have to have a little search for it.
Yeah, well, it's hard to find, which makes it kind of fun. It's like a mystery. You got to go looking for it. It's down a little alley, and in a little nook, and it's literally a tiny little room, like somebody's kitchen. And there's a little courtyard, and there's the wall then with the famous hole in it, where administrators during the Butler rule would be, I suppose civil servants would be going there for a quiet drink to get up to mischief or to do whatever they shouldn't have been doing, So there's only one entrance. So if any other bosses or anyone official came in, they would have to get out the hole in the wall. That was their boat hole, But it's a great place. It's a lovely place to spend an afternoon there, just chatting. And the barmen always know the full story. They give you good history of the place, with all the local legends and folklore thrown in. And then the third place I would save to answer your question would be Donegal, because I got to say, I hadn't been to Donegal since I was 16, like most people, and I went back and I was just amazed. I was blown away how great it was and how different it was from the rest of Ireland in terms of it's got its own culture, its own way of being. It's very laid back. It's very chill. It's a bit like going to Louisiana or somewhere, they just do things in a whole different way to the rest of the country,
Yeah.
And I found great things up there that I wasn't expecting to find. I found a place called Wildlife Ireland, which is in a place called Burnfoot in Donegal, way off the beaten path. But it's basically a wildlife park where this very passionate guy. He's a lawyer. His name is Killian McLaughlin. So he's recreated the Celtic rainforest from 2,000 years ago, and he's reintroducing all these animals and trees and stuff that were there at the time, but became extinct, I guess, in the meantime. So he's brought wolves back to Ireland for the first time. He's a couple of brown bears, and he's all kinds of very interesting birds like the capercaillie, which you'll get in Scotland only. So this is this magical kind of wildlife world that you can visit up there, and it's not a zoo. It's a good few acres. So the animals
sanctuary more, right?
Yeah, it's a sanctuary. So it's the animals are, I wouldn't say they're running wild, but they're in big enclosures. So you don't see them all. You're kind of going onto their turf. But he's done a fantastic job, and it's kind of a magical place to spend a day. And as I was leaving there, Killian said to me, while you're here, go and see the Celtic Peace Garden. And I said, well, what's that? And it was just down the road. And it was, it's a garden that honours the lives of the Irish saints throughout history, and statues and miniature buildings. So, for St. Kevin, you'll have an actual round tower built, kind of miniature round tower that you can climb up as well. But and a lake for St. Brendan the Navigator, and so on. So you walk around this garden, and it's a very secluded garden, very peaceful garden. And it was the idea of a man called Father Neil Carlin, and his brother Brendan Carlin helped him to build it. And it was just this fantastic story that I stumbled across almost, and it's in the book. But it's a lovely place to spend a very peaceful couple of hours.
Right, you're not going to run into many people there.
Exactly, yeah. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, I don't know, 10, 12 miles from Derry City, where bore the brunt of a lot of trouble. So this was their answer to the troubles, is to have a Celtic Peace Garden, which is a lovely idea.
Very.
And a lovely place to go. And then the main reason I went to Donegal was to look at the Glenveigh National Park, which is absolutely fantastic. It's kind of Ireland's secret national park, because it's so far up there. And Donegal only has one
way in.
Yeah, well, from the Republic, otherwise you've got to go across the north. but it's it's a lesser visited place, but it's absolutely gorgeous. It's got Glenveigh Castle, Loch Bay. It's got a dark history, of course, but a fabulous place, a lovely, lovely place for a walk. Spectacular walking in wilderness.
Yeah, and there's a,
Um,
a guy up there actually in the high season. You can rent electric bikes up
mm, mm.
there, and that makes it's a beautiful, beautiful ride through there.
Yeah, it is. It's well worth dedicating a day to that.
Hmm.
If you like being outdoors, it's absolutely magical as well. But the whole of Donegal is filled with great things. The surfing. You can stay in a lighthouse
Hmm.
overnight. It's a wonderland up there. It's great.
Yeah, it's
Takes
stunning.
a little bit getting up there. It takes a little bit longer, but it's well worth the time. So there's my three tips for.
Three tips with three tips. That was exceptional. Well, Jack, again, I want to thank you so much for your time. Um,
No.
Obviously, your book, Always Ireland, an insider's tour of the Emerald Isle, is available now, and
Hmm.
people can get it at Barnes and Noble, Amazon,
Yep.
all the usual
Disney.
suspects.
Yeah, exactly. Anywhere you order books, yeah. And
And
if you want a little sample of it, Jody, I'd say to your listeners, go to at JK Global, um, the Instagram
yep,
account at JK Global, and just we have little samples of the stories and photographs, kind of give you a taster, a
yep,
teaser
and I
for
will link that in the show
brilliant,
notes so people can very easily get over to the Instagram page because the
wonderful.
pictures are gorgeous.
They
The
are
the
lovely.
little
Yeah.
snippets of the stories are so terrific, and like I said, I heavily, I don't want to say skimmed it because I read, but had to get through it before we talked. Um, so it's really nice for me. I look at it and I'm like, oh, do I remember that one? And then I track it down. So really a great Instagram account to follow, and my listeners know that they can go into the show notes and get all the links. So for every place that you mentioned in the three places not to miss, and then the three places in those three places are also going to be linked. So all of your wonderful wisdom is easily
Great,
shareable.
great. And I'd encourage everyone to go to Ireland. It's it'll live up to your expectations, particularly if you don't have any. That's the great thing about it. Just as I say, go with an open mind, talk to people, and you'll definitely have fun. You'll enjoy Ireland. So I'd encourage everyone to go at least once in their lifetime, right?
Exactly. And I can't finish any better than that. So all I am going to say is thank you so much for your time.
And thank you, Jody. Thanks very much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Traveling in Ireland podcast and that you will go out and grab Jack's book because, like he said, it really is a terrific aspirational guide to travel in Ireland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave a 5-star review at Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you can't leave a review on your podcast app, you can leave a review at Ireland Family Vacations on the Facebook page, or if you're listening on your mobile device, go ahead, take a screenshot, pop it into your Instagram stories, and tag me at Ireland Family Vacations with a few kind words. If you have questions or comments, you can always email me, Jody, Jody, at IrelandFamilyVacations.com. And as always, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, slán go fóill.